This is Right to Life Radio with John Girardi on Power Talk 96.7 and AM 1400, a production of the Right to Life of Central California. And now, here's your host, John Girardi.
Good morning and welcome to Right to Life Radio. We're in the midst of 40 Days for Life. And with us here to talk about it for the first segment of the show, I have Right to Life Central California employee Linda Talia here with Linda's Stories from the Sidewalk. Welcome back to Right to Life Radio, Linda.
Well, thank you very much.
As I smack the microphone with my watch and make other things in the studio fall. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. So, Linda.
Well, I was already feeling a little nervous, and then you had to smack your watch.
Yeah,
and now,
exactly. Yeah.
I don't know why I'm nervous.
Well, now the whole tenor
Here
of the
we
show
are.
is off. Here we are. Live radio. Okay. So, Linda, we have you on every first Saturday of the month to talk about stories from the sidewalk. Linda Talia, for those who don't know, is one of our employees here at Right to Life Central California, and she's one of our sidewalk advocates who goes out in front of our building that's right next to Planned Parenthood and interacts with women and couples going into and out of Planned Parenthood to talk with them about their choices and options and try to encourage them to choose life. So we've been in the midst of 40 Days for Life. So tell us what's been going on. I know you've had a couple of interesting, sometimes happy, but sometimes sad stories from the sidewalk and why it's sort of important for us as pro-lifers to be out there, especially during 40 Days for Life.
Yeah. So I was thinking, why am I nervous? I'm never nervous.
Yeah.
But I think it's because I've been thinking about what I want to talk about, and usually I try to talk about something inspiring or great or just,
Sure.
And this time I thought, no, I need to tell you guys what's actually going on out there lately.
Yeah.
And
well, because and that's one of the difficulties of it is that,
it's tough.
It's tough. And I mean, there are people who, we can't, we're standing in front of the sidewalk offering help. We can't, it's not like we can barricade the sidewalk and force people to do things. And all we can do is do our best. And maybe that plants a seed, for something to sprout. So anyway, well, you had one particular instance where something seemed like a success, and then it turned out it wasn't. It might not have been quite the success we thought. So why don't you tell our listeners about it?
Okay. So I had an interaction that isn't uncommon where I had a young couple driving out of the driveway, and I approached them and asked them if they would like some information on some other clinics. And that usually opens a door for conversation. Mm-hmm. And they said, okay, sure. And so I said, like I do sometimes, so are you here for an abortion?
Yeah.
And the dad, well, let me explain. It was a dad, sure. It was a mom, and a 5-month-old baby.
Right.
In this big, nice truck. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, she's having a pregnancy test. I think she's pregnant, and she's going to have an abortion. I just can't do this.
Jeez.
And I was like,
which I must say, not to interrupt you, but
it's okay.
I must say, like, the fact that he's telling you, a perfect stranger, I just can't do this.
Yeah.
Like,
who hasn't been there though?
Clearly indicates that there's some conflict that you feel the need to try to justify it, you know, and that maybe he's open to talking it out. Anyway.
Well, I mean, you have little kids.
Sure.
I'm going to be truthful. It crosses your mind. Like,
it's hard.
Really?
It's not. Yeah. It's
now.
I will say now. I don't have. I mean, I have. The first two are 18 months apart. We have 4 children. We've yet to space them out by 2 years. So they're all within 2 years of each other.
And who hasn't had that day where you wake up and go, "What was I thinking?"
Well, yeah. I mean, kind of. There were a few days earlier this week when we sort of Holly and I sort of thought the same thing. Yeah.
So I kind of tagged on to that. Well, I get that. I totally get that.
Yeah.
But do you realize what you're going to be doing? Mm-hmm. And the mom, I'm going to say that the mom, I don't think she could speak English. At least not very well, because I could tell by her quizzical look at me. But she was like looking at me wantingly, like, tell me more, tell him more, kind of thing. And so I just started talking about the reality of it, and then I just started being firm, and I said, look, I'm looking at your truck.
Yeah.
I can tell what you do for a living. You can do this. I know that you are financially capable of doing this, and you look like a very strong person, and you have a family already.
Yeah.
You don't want to be regretful. You can do this. And
Sure.
I felt like he was coming in, and finally he said, okay, that's it. I'm never coming back here. And it sounded real. And I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
cool. Win.
So, yeah.
So I went in, and then my shift was over, and I went home. And a couple of days later, I was talking to George about what to talk about on the radio. I said, I'm trying to, I think I'm going to use that story. And he said, hate to burst your bubble. They came back.
Yeah. And George is our outreach director at Right to Life, and he helps manage the clinic. So yeah, he was there
obviously in the late afternoon, and I was like, no way.
Yeah.
I mean, it breaks my heart.
Sure.
It'd break anybody's heart. I'm still thinking, oh, maybe they just came back because they forgot something.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard to stand there and really imagine what's going on out there.
Yeah.
But
and and it's so tough because, what is the point of this kind of work?
yeah,
The point of this kind of work is obviously to do our absolute best to give these babies a fighting chance. To give,
Totally, yeah.
And to a certain
and
extent, it's
the mom and the dad too. I mean, this affects everybody, not just the baby.
Yeah.
My purpose out there is to give people a little hope, a little support, a little education.
Yeah.
And so what I want to drive home today is that we need support, we need prayers, we need people out there. We need people there all the time so that when something like this happens, that someone else is coming in behind me saying,
yeah.
hey, you know what? You're right. I mean, with, couple of 40 Days for Life, we had a tag team thing going on where when I would be done, my other coworker would chime right in, and it helped.
Right.
Because you run out of gas a little, and you're like, I think I said everything. I think I said okay.
Yeah.
But then the other person comes in and they say, yeah, you know what else? Here's this.
Yeah.
So.
And it's sort of, so many things to think. Obviously, the key point of the main point of what we're doing is trying to give people the information we can to help save these babies.
Yes.
But it's also a thing of maybe it's something where we're planting a seed with these people who, and obviously we don't know exactly what happened. We don't know 100% if they went through with it. We don't know if he was just trying to blow you off to get out of the conversation, and they were always.
It didn't feel like it. But
and
people are people.
But it is a thing of maybe you laying that seed results in a breakthrough at some point down the road. Maybe it helps them try to seek out more healing later. Maybe it helps, it's a thing where that's why this work is so important. It's not necessarily, obviously we want success. We celebrate success, but ultimately we sort of realize that the success is really more in God's hands in a way than it is in ours. Yeah.
But I think while you were talking, I was thinking of the other thing, which is we as pro-lifers have a bad reputation.
Sure.
A lot of people think that we're just out here, we have some sort of agenda, either religious or political or whatever.
Yeah.
And even my interaction, even anybody's interaction out there for a minute that is kind and supportive and takes away from that thought process is good. It's me standing out there saying, hey, you know what? I don't have an agenda.
Sure.
I really actually care about what's going to happen to you. Not just the baby, but you.
Right.
And most people need to know that. And that's important for our organization to be able to deliver that message too.
Yeah, because that is a talking point of, all you guys, you just care about fetuses and embryos. You don't give a dang about, actual women, or actually once the baby's born, you don't care. And then the political stuff comes in. Oh, you're just a shill for the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And once the baby's born, you don't want it, which,
Or some sort of religious weirdos.
Sure,
where, they have all kinds of opinions.
Sure. And as much as we try it on local level and an organizational level to work against that. There's always some of that national residual stereotype that's always going to be around. Now, one of the things you were talking about, it actually connects to, it sort of connects with something we talked about last month, how this notion, and if anyone's listening to this and maybe dealing with an unexpected pregnancy, or knows someone who's dealing with an unexpected pregnancy, or knows someone who may in the future deal with one,
or know somebody, or know somebody, or
whatever,
their friend.
Just think about this. Like, okay, so we talked about this this thing in psychology about how it's unhelpful.
Oh, here we go with the psychology again.
Well, you know, amateur psychologists here. How it's unhelpful and usually false to say, I'm just bad at math. I'm just bad at X. I'm just bad at Y. To label yourself as basically to label yourself as a kind of static entity who is just the kind of entity who is bad at something. It seems like that's what you're dealing with that guy, where it was like, oh, we just can't do this.
We can't do this.
And it's like, well,
yeah,
really, can't you? Are you really the first people in human history to, maybe
have an unplanned pregnancy,
have an unplanned pregnancy, or have a pregnancy that's showing up a little closer
early
to your prior pregnancy
yeah.
than you expect? Like you really can do this, and that mm-hmm. I think that's we've tried, I think, in a lot of our messaging to try to emphasize that. I know that's a major point when you're interacting with people, and it's such an important thing to kind of emphasize to people. This actually relates to other stuff. So. This was such a consistent theme in the actual text of the Roe v. Wade decision, was that the chief, like one of the health reasons to justify an abortion is familial health, basically the notion. It was this weird way of basically rationalizing any abortion can be a health reason because it disturbs your family dynamic. But the justices on the Supreme Court basically thought that the burdens of pregnancy were so bad and so terrible and so onerous, not just pregnancy, but being a parent, were so bad and terrible and onerous as to justify legal abortion. And to kind of flip that around and sort of say, well, no, but yes, the burdens of pregnancy are difficult, but also the natural ties of love and affection that parents have to show for people, that, we all have unexpected burdens that might be placed on us as far as needing to care for an elderly loved one, or for a sick loved one, or a sick child, or an unexpected baby. Mm-hmm. That, that's just part of being human, and that, we can have the strength to deal with these things when they come. So I don't know how I got on that wild tangent.
Well,
but yeah.
When you were talking about that, I was thinking of something. I don't know if we want to go straight into something else.
Sure.
But so we were talking about whether we were going to bring this up or not. I don't know what you call them, counter protesters. Mm-hmm. But I had one yesterday, and he was saying, well, do you believe abortion is right? Mm-hmm. And I said, no. Mm-hmm. And he said, why not? And I said, well, simply because it's a slippery slope. Mm-hmm. Where do you stop?
Yeah, where if you're starting to kill unborn children, what's the rational dividing line from the unborn child to the born child? What's the
not even that.
Yeah.
He said, well, what are you talking about? And I said, did you realize that now legally you can choose to have I'm going to call it a baby, mm-hmm. killed right after it's born in several states? Mm-hmm. That's
or with withdrawal of care, or
however,
yeah. I mean,
that was harsh, but let's call a spade a spade.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how terminal the health condition is or something. Yeah, or even all these states that have withdrawn
right after birth, right?
Well, for children who have survived an abortion, basically to not provide that child with any care. But I mean, but it is this sort of animating thing.
But I wanted to say, I looked at him and I said, did you know that? Mm-hmm. He said, no.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. And I said, well, I think if you come out here and you have a reason to be out here, you probably want to make sure you've done your research and you know actually what's going on, because you don't know who I am, what I'm doing, or why I'm doing it.
Sure.
And I'm explaining this one thing, and I'm asking you now, do you think that's okay?
Yeah.
Ultimately, he said no. Mm-hmm. And so then I was able to dialogue and say, okay, well, when... Mm-hmm. So you probably consider that a baby then. Yes. Yeah. And when is a baby not a baby?
Right.
And so that's the kind of stuff that we can start talking about and dialogue and be informative and educational.
Right.
And that's just as important.
Absolutely, yeah.
This is really what's going on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. To see that and to see that physical reality is just so important. Anyway, well, thank you, Linda, for joining us today. If you want to participate with Right to Life of Central California in our 40 Days for Life campaign, please give us a call during the week, 559-229-2229. We'll get you set up with one of our groups who goes out there. And thank you very much, Linda.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Love to have you.
All right. When we return, our buddy Jonathan Keller will break down with us some of the bad California statewide bills to advance abortion. That is next on Right to Life Radio. The Doobie Brothers with us on Right to Life Radio. Thank you all so much. Here's Michael Bolton. I love Michael Bolton so much. Thank you so much for tuning in to Right to Life Radio, the best bumper music in the greater Fresno area radio market. Some might say the world.
One of the best Saturday Night Live musical guests as well.
Oh, yeah.
His famous Captain Jack Sparrow music video with the Lonely Island folks. If you haven't seen that.
Oh, wait. No. You're thinking... Wait, did I say Michael Bolton?
You said Michael Bolton.
I meant Michael McDonald. I'm sorry. I said Michael
you
Bolton.
You did say Michael Bolton.
Yeah, but that was Michael. My gosh, I can't believe it. Michael McDonald. Yeah.
I was a little surprised. I didn't realize you were such a Michael Bolton fan.
I'm not really. Take him or leave him. I don't dislike him. Yeah. We've played Michael Bolton on the show before, actually.
Yeah.
What's his son? Why can we be lovers when... How can we be lovers if we can't be friends? I love that one. Is a total jam. And there's one. There's a video on YouTube of him playing that song. By the way, Jonathan Keller from California Family Council is with us. Thank you, Jonathan, for being here today.
Happy to offer now irrelevant references to Saturday Night Live.
Exactly. There's if you want to check out something totally awesome, look up Michael Bolton, How Can We Be Lovers If We Can't Be Friends live, and there's a totally awesome video of Michael Bolton with the most flowing mullet that has ever been mulled singing. Anyway.
Before he had to shave it all off.
Well, he didn't have to. He just gave in to the man. All right. We're going to talk on much of the rest of the show today. Jonathan from California Family Council. California Family Council focuses quite a bit on California's statewide issues, statewide political issues. And we haven't really done much of this because we've been waiting for the state legislature to introduce all of their legislation regarding abortion and life issues. Towards the end of February, the legislature has to introduce all of their new bills for the year. And we are past that point.
Yes.
The
point of no return.
Yes. Our friend Penny Harrington, who, by the way, any of you who missed last Thursday's excellent event on abortion law in the Biden era, really encourage you to go to YouTube. You can watch the whole event there, including Penny Harrington's presentation on some of the bills that are being introduced this year on life issues in California. And we're going to talk about some of those bills because of just how awful some of the stuff being introduced this year is. So I'm going to start with AB 705. Okay. Now, this bill is a full frontal assault on religious freedom and the religious freedom of mostly Christian healthcare providers, really any healthcare provider of religious faith who opposes certain kinds of healthcare, doing certain kinds of healthcare practices, abortion, assisted suicide. It also deals with certain kinds of sex change stuff, procedures, and things like that. But basically, to take away the ability of Catholic healthcare providers, Christian healthcare providers, to conscientiously object from performing some of these practices that they oppose. So this bill, AB 705, is incredibly euphemistically titled the Peace Act. Okay, which that stands for, what does that stand for, Jonathan? The Peace Act, Protecting Equal Access to Care Everywhere Act. And now you may think, equal access to care everywhere.
Who wouldn't want that?
Who wouldn't want to protect it? Well, let's dig into it. What they mean by care is abortion. Now, here's from the Assemblywoman who introduced this. This is from her fact sheet on it. The religious institutions involved in mergers. Now, okay, so this relates to a Javier Becerra thing. So Javier Becerra, when he was Attorney General of the state of California, actually tried to sue certain chains of Catholic hospitals that were trying to merge. And he did so on the grounds, this is another feather in his cap for why he shouldn't be the HHS secretary, He did so on the grounds that because it was a bunch of Catholic hospital chains that were merging, and Catholic hospital chains don't do abortions, that it would limit care for women. It would limit women's ability to access abortion, contraception, etc. So Assemblywoman Kamlager, I think that's how you pronounce her name, says, quote, the religious institutions involved in mergers prohibit a number of services from being provided in their facilities, including reproductive care, access to contraception, surrogacy arrangements, assisted reproduction, and compliance with advanced healthcare directives and patient end-of-life wishes that are contrary to religious teachings. Corporations should not be granted the authority to deny patients care based on personal beliefs or profit motives that conflict with the clinical decision-making of physicians and other healthcare providers. And the long and short of this is very simple. She wants to introduce legislation in the California state legislature to force religious hospitals, religious healthcare providers to do abortions.
Yep.
It's pretty much a full frontal assault on the religious liberty rights of Christian institutions. When we come back, we're going to dig into this more and talk about how the Supreme Court might view these restrictions. I'm going to guess not well, based on its current composition. You're listening to Right to Life Radio on Power Talk 96.7, AM 1400, and the iHeartRadio app. John Girardi for Right to Life of Central California. John Girardi, Jonathan Keller, Right to Life Radio. This is Christopher Cross. Gonna ride like the wind here on Right to Life Radio. Little yacht rock action for your Saturday morning. Thank you all so much for listening, and thank you for supporting Right to Life of Central California. This show is, as always, a production of Right to Life. If you want to learn more about Right to Life or support the show, if you like the show, if you appreciate what you're hearing, give us a listen. Go to our website, rtlcc.org, and do a little donate. You can sign up for the 300 Club, one of the best ways to support us at Right to Life. For a simple $25 a month, you can help keep Right to Life of Central California afloat. Basically, if everyone within the sound of my voice were to support Right to Life of Central California with a simple $25 a month donation, we wouldn't even need to do any other fundraising at all. We'd be totally fine. We'd be rolling in the dough.
And John, I got to tell you, I was using you guys as an example when I was getting ready for my board meeting with California Family Council next week, saying, hey,
how about a 300 Club-esque thing? All right.
If Right to Life here in Central California can have such a gangbusters fundraising effort with 300 Club, all those hundreds of names, why couldn't we do that at California Family Council?
Exactly. Now, I want to thank some of the people who've signed up for the 300 Club: Rich and Amy Tobin, Jerry and Patty Farney, Jeff and Maureen Abercrombie, Ed and Patricia Gomez. Gomes or Gomez? I'm not sure. I think it's Gomes. Charles and Nancy Hindenburg, Mark and Janet Cameron. Oh, Mark and Janet Cameron. That's delightful. Ann Remlinger and Rick and Tony Bredmont. Thank you so much for your support. All right, Jonathan, we're digging into some of the bad bills introduced in the California legislature that have to do with abortion, and we are going to be active in working against these bills at Right to Life in whatever ways we can, and encouraging all of you to contact your state assembly and state senate representatives to vote no on these bills. So let me dig into them a little bit more. So first we have AB 705, which we talked about a little bit. Basically what AB 705 is going to do is it's going to require religious hospitals that don't want to do abortions to force them to do abortions and other healthcare practices that they are not okay with doing from a religious and conscientious standpoint. Now, Jonathan, I guess I'll ask you what you think about just the feasibility of this. Like, do you think the legislature actually has the stomach to go along with it? I know back in the day, back in like 2015, I don't know that a bill like this would have passed. But the legislature today is much different from the legislature in 2015.
Yes.
It's a lot more radical. You know, you have a more liberal governor. I don't know what your thoughts are about AB 705 and whether you think it has a likelihood of passing.
Well, John, you kind of said the problem is that this year we have it's interesting. The last 4 years you had both under Jerry Brown and then under Gavin Newsom, California was kind of the anti-Trump state.
Yeah.
We were known as basically kind of the, our number one job when legislators woke up every morning was how can we poke our finger in the eye of President Trump and all of his supporters.
Right.
We saw that with Javier Becerra. We saw that with Gavin Newsom. I think the unique thing is now the progressive movement in California has a little bit of an identity crisis.
Yeah.
What are they going to do
now? Yeah, we don't, we have Biden in there, so
Yep.
What are we supposed to do?
And in a lot of ways, California, unfortunately, is really on the national stage in terms of policymaking. You have, obviously, Kamala Harris is now the vice president of the United States.
Javier Becerra
might be at HHS. But don't forget, we have, very bizarrely, in our state, we have both the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the minority leader for the Republicans.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So the political world nationally is disproportionately
California
weighted
centric.
towards California.
Yeah.
And I think that some legislators at the state level have to kind of be wondering, okay, is it best for us to kind of, charge bravely, like the riot of the Light Brigade, and just say, we're going to be as far progressive as we can, as in the past? Or do they have to kind of start looking at some of these policies and go, well,
because and beyond that, there's also a different legal situation for them. The Supreme Court is much more conservative now. And while I think Gorsuch in some ways stabbed social conservatives in the back with the Bostock decision, while I think Roberts stabbed a lot of social conservatives in the back with the June medical decision, I think when it comes to religious liberty issues, and that's what AB 705 is, it's an attack on religious liberty. It's not so much an attack, it's not so much a pro-abortion thing. It is, but it's also an attack on religious liberty, that basically you have these Christian and Catholic healthcare providers, or any religious healthcare provider, anyone of goodwill who just doesn't want to do abortions, and they're going to force them to do abortions, force them to do formal referrals for assisted suicide, etc. Gorsuch and Roberts are much more sympathetic to religious liberty arguments, I think, than they are to straight up, is abortion, are you going to overturn Roe v. Wade or not, or other things like that. And so the Supreme Court is different. Also, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is much different. Okay, so for those who don't know what I'm talking about here, so for any federal lawsuit that's filed in California, okay, it's filed at what's called the district court level. So the district court hears trials. It's the first court to review a legal case or controversy. If you're challenging the constitutionality of a law, you start challenging it in a federal district court. Well, then it gets appealed up to one of the appellate courts, one of the federal circuit courts. And we in California live within the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which hears all of the appeals.
The circle of I'm sorry.
The Ninth Circle of Hell.
Yes.
Yeah, the Ninth Circuit Court of Schlemiels. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals hears all of the appeals from federal court decisions from Hawaii, Alaska, Guam, Oregon, Washington, California, Arizona, Nevada, Idaho. Is there any other? Utah?
I think maybe.
Maybe Utah?
Yeah, I have to look again.
Okay, we'd have to look it up.
Pull it up.
But anyway, so the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals hears all of the appeals from California. Now, at the start of the Trump presidency, the Ninth Circuit was overwhelmingly loaded with Democrat-appointed judges appointed by either Barack Obama or Bill Clinton. Now, it's still a majority Democrats, but there's a lot of Montana. That's the one I forgot.
Yep.
It's still majority Democrat appointees on the Ninth Circuit, but now there's a very large minority of judges on the Ninth Circuit who are Trump appointees.
Yes.
Trump appointed a ton of judges to the Ninth Circuit. So there's a much better opportunity for an ultra-liberal bill passed by the California legislature to actually get overturned in the Ninth Circuit rather than just sort of sail along. So
John,
they don't have that safety net anymore.
He appointed, in just 4 years, President Trump appointed 10 judges to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Wow. Yeah.
President Obama only appointed 7 in his 8 years.
Right. So yeah, I mean, that's one of the, honestly, one of the best pro-life things that the president did was just pack the federal circuit courts with good judges. So that is, so I do wonder if the Democrats have the stomach to do it. I mean, the thing is, though, they have 3/4 of all the votes.
Yes.
In the Assembly and the Senate. And Gavin Newsom is really aggressively liberal in ways that I think this bill would not have come out under Jerry Brown.
I think you're right. Because we saw Jerry Brown actually veto some legislation. I mean, remember, there was the bill by Lorena Gonzalez.
AB 569, I believe.
I believe that's right.
Yeah.
Yep. And
2018.
2018. Maybe it was even back to 2017. I think it was 2017 because it was the year before the big fight with AB 2218.
You're right.
2017, Lorena Gonzalez passed this bill that essentially said it banned pregnancy discrimination. And, well, hey, John, come on, we're pro-life. Of course, we're against discriminating against someone because they're pregnant.
Right.
But what this bill actually did, again, talk about euphemisms.
Yeah.
It essentially said, well, we're going to say that it is discrimination if you make any employment decision, even if you're a religious organization, that is even tangentially related to someone being pregnant. As in, someone was pregnant.
And had an abortion. Yeah.
They're not pregnant now. And if you are the, I don't know, head of a preschool at, Our Lady of Perpetual Help, and you have an abortion, the church should be out. And by the way, I'm not saying that, that's an example. There's no scandal there.
There's no one like that.
No.
He's just using OLPH as a hypothetical example.
But you should be able to, as a religious institution, you should be able to uphold your convictions. And sadly, Lorena Gonzalez said, no, you should not be able to uphold your faith-based convictions, your religious Christian convictions, and require certain codes of conduct and standards of behavior among your employees. Remarkably, as you said, Jerry Brown vetoed that bill.
Yeah. And Jerry Brown, look, Jerry Brown was no pro-lifer.
That's putting it mildly.
To put it mildly. But the one thing Jerry Brown did have, which I don't think Gavin Newsom does, is a genuine respect for the work of religious institutions in the state of California and a decent respect for their religious liberty rights, where even though he didn't agree with them on abortion, on assisted suicide, on blah, 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 he at the very least respected that, okay, religious hospitals do a lot of good in this state. Religious colleges do a lot of good in this state. And we shouldn't coerce them to change their belief systems or possibly threaten them with closure just because, we're mad that they're not doing one of these things that we'd like. So, and I don't think Gavin Newsom has any sense of that. I don't think Gavin Newsom has any kind of residual affection for Catholicism in that way.
No.
I think he's a baptized Catholic, but I don't think he has any kind of residual respect for religion in the way that Jerry Brown at least did.
Yeah. I mean, I have a really hard time imagining, John, especially, this is the unique thing this year this is going to be a very unique season because, again, we are in this new position where Democrats have a very tenuous hold on power in Washington, but also Gavin Newsom has a very tenuous hold on power right now in Sacramento.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, given the fact that we just saw, John, I don't know if you read this tweet from Kevin Kiley, assembly member from up in the Rockland area, the Recall Gavin Newsom campaign just passed 1.9 million signatures submitted.
Oh, wow. And they needed 1.5, right?
They need 1.5, 1.6. And they're saying that with the validation rates being between 70 and 80%, their goal is to get about 2 million signatures by the March 17th deadline.
So that means it's almost, I didn't actually know that, Jonathan. You're breaking this news to me.
There you go.
So that means it's pretty certain we're going to have a recall election.
Almost undoubtedly. Now, there is, I'll say this: a little birdie who knows someone who works at the SEIU told me, "Oh no, it's going to be disqualified. The signature verification."
So basically, the
it's
Democrats
just,
are going to mess with the
just,
signature verification. Yeah.
And again, this is a friend of a friend that said this apparently, and is just saying, "No, don't worry about it. Yeah, hey, you got nothing.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
Hey,
it's
hey.
going to be fine."
Yeah.
But I think, John, if it gets down to if it,
I mean, once they get 2 million, I mean, come on, they're not going to throw out
500,000 signatures.
Yeah, come on, get out of here.
I think that it is, and here's the thing: if that happens, I think you're really going to see. I don't know what dance now does the governor do. What dance does the legislature do? Because
Yeah.
do you
Put some things on hold while this is happening? I mean, the governor. Yeah, I don't know. That's a very, very interesting question. All right, when we return, we're going to talk a little bit about a new bill introduced in the legislature this year on physician-assisted suicide. Basically, the pro-assisted suicide left wants to loosen the already very loose restrictions and protections around physician-assisted suicide. Stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss it. Right to Life Radio, right here on Power Talk 96.7 AM 1400. Jackson Brown, everybody, right here on Right to Life Radio. Must be somebody's baby. Thank you so much for listening to Right to Life Radio, a production, as always, of Right to Life of Central California, rtlcc.org. All right, Jonathan, shifting gears here a little bit. We're still talking about the California legislature and some of the nasty, rotten, horrible bills that they've introduced this year. And we'll talk more about some of this stuff next week, too. There's another bill about insurance coverage for abortion that we're going to dig into, basically. Allow women to have abortions with absolutely no out-of-cost payments. As Jonathan's microphone starts sounding buzzy. Did we lose Jonathan? Oh, dear.
I think we might be okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Nope, we cannot. All right. Well, we'll figure it out. Producer Raphael will scramble, and I will keep talking. All right. So one of the bills that we really are opposing is Senate Bill 380, SB 380.
I think I'm back.
Hey,
there we
you're
go.
back. There you go, Jonathan. Good job.
SB 380.
SB 380. Now, this bill is sponsored by a group called Compassion and Choices.
Again,
the revamped name of the Hemlock Society.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, I love imagining what must have happened when the Hemlock Society first got together and decided on that name. Like, hey, you know what people think is really cool? When Socrates killed himself. Yeah, that's great.
we should promote that for everybody.
It makes me think of that Steve Martin skit where he's Socrates and he's like, why didn't you guys tell me that hemlock was poison? You guys are constantly asking me, Socrates, what is truth? Socrates, where should we go out for dinner? And not once did you guys think to tell me, hey, Socrates, hemlock is poison. All right.
I love all these Saturday Night Live references.
That wasn't even a Saturday Night Live.
Was that just his stand-up?
It was a Steve Martin ABC special. And it was just him and a bunch of random skits. My wife's family had it on VHS and had it on DVD and watched it like a billion times. It was one of their things. It also included Steve Martin pretending to be an Olympic diver, and instead of diving, he would just jump into the pool doing silly like the cannonball and like man pretending to be shot in midair. Like the stuff that little kids do when they jump in pools. Anyway, so SB 380 this is the end. This has to do with end of life stuff. And basically, what it does is it loosens up a lot of the restrictions around physician assisted suicide in California. So, as many of you know, in 2016, California legalized physician assisted suicide. Basically, if you have a 1-year terminal diagnosis, you receive a diagnosis of cancer or whatever, you have 1 year left to live, then basically you can request from a physician a prescription for life-ending medication. I'm using scare quotes around medication because it's really just poison.
John, I mean, this makes perfect sense because everyone obviously knows that whenever a doctor gives you a prognosis with a presumed date of death, it's never wrong.
Right. 1 year. Yeah. Yes.
Like to the date.
Exactly.
Like, they can tell precisely.
Yeah. So if I get a 1 year prognosis, today's March 4th, on March 3rd of 2022, I will be alive, and on March 4th at midnight, I will drop down stone cold dead.
It's like a little expiration date. Yes. They just tattoo it on your neck right when they give it to you.
Exactly. Now, as we know, a 1 year diagnosis of a terminal 1 year diagnosis, it's a reasonable but good faith. It's a guess. Okay. Yep. And very often people will be told you have about a year to live and will underlive it by several months. Some people will be told you have a year to live, and they will outlive it by 20 years.
Yep.
Okay, it is a good faith guess on the part of the doctor, but to ascribe this kind of like moral certitude to it or scientific level certainty is completely bonkers. Furthermore, it doesn't seem to be tied. Assisted suicide isn't tied at all to whether you're suffering from excruciating pain. Just do you have a terminal diagnosis? Then you can kill yourself. The vast majority of people who take advantage of physician-assisted suicide are not suffering from horrible pain. There's no assessment of whether these people are just suffering from normal effects of depression and just need help in that sense. Now, SB 380 is introduced by Susan Eggman, who is the legislator who originally introduced physician-assisted suicide. Basically, what it does, it lowers the bar for a mental health exam, which basically you don't need to do a mental health exam, but if a doctor suggests it, it lowers that bar. It removes the timing requirements for oral requests for suicide drugs, and then physicians who are not participating in the program, who don't want to participate, must refer the patient out to someone who does. So it's another attack on the religious liberty rights of doctors who just don't want to participate in physician-assisted suicide. So this is another terrible piece of legislation. If you follow us during this year at Right to Life of Central California, we will provide you with more information throughout the year on these bad pieces of legislation and what you can do to stop them. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. This has been John Girardi for Right to Life of Central California and Right to Life Radio.